Hello, my name is Jill Coyle, and welcome to another episode of No One Dies from Divorce, where we talk the nitty-gritty aspects of divorce and help each other come through this not only surviving, but thriving. I'm a divorce attorney, and I'm interviewing other experts and people just like you who are going through or have been through a divorce, so you can have the latest and greatest information on all things before, during, and after divorce. Let's dive in. Welcome to another episode of No One Dies from Divorce. Today we're talking more about financial benefits of divorce. And you heard me right, financial benefits. There are some of those when it comes to divorce, and we're going to talk about it. My guest speaker today is Rick Salmeron. Well, first of all, welcome to the show, Rick.
Thank you for that welcome. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah, and where are you where are you today? We never know.
Where am I in the world?
Yeah.
I'm in Dallas, Texas. It's
Really?
a beautiful spring day.
That's amazing. Dallas is where my husband grew up, and we just bought a house there.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, that's awesome.
So
let's go have some coffee sometime when you're here, huh?
Absolutely. I love it. We
love
actually just opened our Texas office as well. I'm licensed in Texas. I went to law school down in Houston. So we're doing Coyle Law and Moxie Law, my personal injury, in Dallas. So
awesome. I'd love to make the connection. Let's continue the discussion after this podcast.
Perfect. So let me tell you a little bit about Rick. So Rick's that guy who actually loves things like compounding interest, ROI, and financial statements. He's not a certified financial planner professional because his guidance counselor once told him he should give it a whirl. He was meant to do this. He's that guy who makes your trip to the financial planner a lot more like a local neighborhood cafe and a lot less like your high school accounting class. Entered the industry in 1990, he created Salmeron Financial in 2001 and helps brilliant, very successful, and typically insanely busy people and families make wise decisions with their money so that they can pursue their most important financial goals. So Rick, you are perfect for this podcast because so much of divorce is the financial ramifications of it, whether it's bad or good. And a lot of times we talk so much about the bad parts, like, oh, what is this going to do for my wealth? What is this going to do for my future? And so today I wanted to kind of take a little bit of spin on it. And I wanted to say, hey, let's talk about what actually it could be the financial benefits of going into divorce. And that it doesn't need to all be negative.
Yeah, a lot of it, that divorce experience can suck. It's a lot of negative about it, but there's always several silver linings with everything. Absolutely. And divorce does have financial silver linings. And I love bringing that to the attention of people who are now split. Yes. I'm divorced myself, and I experienced them myself when I got divorced about 8 years ago or so.
That's perfect. I love that you kind of have that personal story, which is going to resonate with all of our listeners today. Because I kind of wanted to step back a little bit into your story. So you've been a financial planner or in this industry since 1990, and now you're just mentioned your divorce. So talk to me through about kind of what brought you to your goal and your purpose today.
Well, I've always been comfortable with money. People ask me, well, when did you start doing this in the business? I started this when I was 8 years old. At 8 years old, I opened up my first savings account. It was on a Saturday morning, a beautiful sunny day like it is today. I'm looking outside my window. Yeah. And I was at the breakfast table, and my mother put her hand on my shoulder and she said, Rick, today's going to be a very special day for you because guess what? We're going to go to a place called a savings and loan, and we're going to open up a savings account for you. And I looked at her and I didn't really know what that meant. It's too young to really comprehend it. And I said, what does that mean, Mom? Well, see, son, if you let them keep your money, they will pay you money for keeping your money. I didn't still resonate with that, but what was good for Mom was good for me. I dropped my spoon in my Lucky Charms. We got into the car and we drove. I emptied my pockets, $10 worth of change over several weeks of allowance. My mother doubled that with another $10, and my first savings account was born with $20. It wasn't until 90 days later, Jill, I received my first statement in the mail.
Okay.
And my balance went from $20 to $20.15.
Yeah.
That was an aha moment that I still remember to today. I'm 57 years old, and full circle, I'm giving you kind of a long answer to your brief question. However, it was from that moment I noticed this pattern of behavior. I invested in my first stock at age 18. I bought my first house at age 22. I maxed out on my first job's 401k. It was natural for me. So the conversations in the world of money that can be very complex for a lot of people for understandable reasons is like a second language to me. So why not just create a business, offer up this kind of guidance in a succinct manner that's very digestible and consumable? And that's how I created my business. And I love bringing that peace of mind to people.
Oh, I
So when
love that.
people are going through divorce, that's a very tumultuous period of time, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we can make that financial part as easy as possible with that transition. Wow, that can really touch lives.
I love that. I always say, make your passion your purpose, and it will one day become your profession. And I can hear that's exactly what you do, and which is great because it helps you get up in the morning, right, and go to work
Oh yeah.
because you're passionate about what you're doing
Mhm.
and you're helping people. And then
Mhm.
let's go back to your story. So you said that you were divorced 8 years ago. So is that kind of what led you even further into this journey of really wanting to help and lend a hand to these people going through divorce?
It helped in adding another chapter in I'll call it my book of wisdom, okay? Because I did have my own personal experience, and some of my clients are, yes, divorced, not all of them, but sure, I recognize the experience when that happens to couples and what happens to people because I've experienced that myself. So I love being able to connect with and relate with my clients on any kind of level that I can.
That's
And that's one
awesome.
of them. So
So before we dive into kind of more specifics of benefits of divorce, I want your top tips for creating wealth. Just the top tips that you give
mhm.
everybody.
Top
And
tips for creating wealth. It's all found in the small stuff, Jill. It's not investment selection, although that is very important.
mm-hmm.
It's not about that. That may sound odd, but it's true. It all comes down to behavior. The actions that we take and the actions that we don't take will translate into the financial results in our life. Take a look at, I'm speaking generically, not directly
Yeah.
at you, just take a look at your balance sheet. Your balance sheet is a reflection of your financial habits, what your credit card balances look like, what your savings account looks like, what your retirement account looks like, what your college account looks like for your kids, and so on and so forth. That's a direct reflection of your habits. My top tip for anyone is to maximize and improve upon the good habits and minimize or get rid of the bad habits.
Yeah.
There may be life events that create a windfall or the home run. I really scored big on, say, XYZ investment, and sure, that can affect one's wealth and one's personal balance sheet. However, for the most part, it all comes down to our daily activities and daily behaviors.
Okay, so this is the question. Is there one perfect way of creating wealth?
No,
Okay.
a perfect way of creating wealth. Although a perfect guide I would say again is be doing the right things that are right for you. Are the activities that you're doing on your financial ship, are they steering your ship in the direction that you want to meet those retirement goals that you have, to meet the pot of gold that you want to have at the end of the rainbow for whatever the purpose is? And
Yeah.
everyone's list of activities, everyone's actions they should take, or the bad ones to avoid, those are all unique and different to the person. A lot of people have very similar goals in life, but we're all starting from a different point A.
Yeah. And I kind of have a hard time with, well, I'll just say it, like the Dave Ramsey's, like the people capitalizing off of the one way, one method.
Mhm.
Because I absolutely disagree. I don't believe that there is a one perfect way or one way, and everybody's situation is different. You know, I grew up in a family where it was important to have 10% that went to, you know, religious contribution, 10% to savings, and the, you know, and then the remainder was to be budgeted to cover yourself. And I have lived that mantra my entire life, and a lot of people would be like, oh, you know, you should blah 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 blah, and I'm like, I have never been out of money, I've never been out of savings, and I've never been in a situation where I have wondered if I was going to be able to pay a bill. And you know, and when people say debt is bad, I laugh, because I say rich people use debt all the time, and it's actually a very, very smart way of creating more wealth. So
It can
so
be.
so anyways, I love that you said that, because I want people to hear that, like, there's no one perfect way to do
There's
it.
not. I would
Um,
add to that. I would add to that. It's perfectly okay to hear what someone else is doing, like say the Dave Ramsey model. Use that as a starting point
yeah,
and see if that works for you. If you're creating the magnificent results in your life based on a model or a path that someone else is professing or using, then great.
yeah,
If not, if you find pieces that, yeah, that works for me, but these others don't, then that's okay too. Personal finance is personal. It's unique to the person. So it's very important to have something, find that shoe size that fits your foot.
yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. So one of the things with divorce, shifting a little bit more into that specifically, is that so many people, okay, so this is, I get asked all the time, like, what is the biggest commonality you see in divorce? And, you know, a lot of people expect me that I'm going to say, oh, you know, there's been an affair, or they just don't communicate. But the biggest commonality that I see, like the biggest red flag, is separate finances. It is so more common. And you know, I'm solely against that. I don't believe you should ever have separate finances in a marriage. You know, there are the exceptions when there's like a bankruptcy or garnishments where it makes sense to keep money separate, but it doesn't mean that the parties shouldn't be coming together every month and going over their budget or understanding the money. That's just my opinion, and I'll preach it all day long.
Okay.
So in your experience, do you see that a lot as well? Like this just two parties that just do not, they don't know their financial situation?
I don't see that a lot, although and I'm speaking from my shoes, I think that you've got a larger spotlight on that part with couples than I do. However, what I have seen is when I've had situations where I've got clients who were at one point husband and wife, and now they're not. Sure, the money part was a big factor in that. And were there some financial stuff going on that shouldn't have been going on? Yeah, for sure. I don't see in large part a lot of couples having separate finances. And maybe I also look at my clients, and many of them are still married. And maybe you're exactly right. So yeah, in a marriage, and maybe this is finance related, although I would say just from my own personal experience, I'm happily married now. I've got a wonderful marriage and I love my wife dearly. And one of the keys to our happiness is the openness of communication, and that includes financial communication. I think that's very, very important to keep and sustain, if not build upon, the marital harmony. You have to know, you don't have to be the expert. There can be, sure, someone who takes charge and is more responsible for the money. But I do think that's, generally speaking, couples are asking for trouble if they don't let the other spouse at least know what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. And we see that a lot. I mean, just like, you know, financial abuse or whatever, but a lot of times it's just that I didn't care. So I didn't deal with it. And I'm like, in whatever situation it is, there should be openness about your money. You should know where your money is. You should have access to all the accounts. You should be able to go get the information. And then
Mhm.
if you choose not to, then, mud's on your face. Like then there's an excuse. But
Mhm.
it's really important to understand your financial picture.
Yeah,
So,
it is.
I was going to ask you, as a financial advisor, when you have a married couple comes into you, do you require both parties to come in? Like, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, I really do require that both parties come in at least for the first initial consultation, which is always complimentary, by the way. But I've had say, for example, the husband, she doesn't care about any of that stuff.
Hmm.
She always delegates that to me, and I say, great, that's wonderful. However, at least from my perspective, we're talking about establishing, frankly, a long-term relationship, a working relationship here that is not just about an account and numbers. The dynamics of the happiness and emotional and other, family vibes and other dynamics, that's part of the financial planning picture. And I want to get to know my clients. So yeah, in the initial phase, I do require the husband and the wife to be here. And if the wife's the one that's in charge all the time and he doesn't really mess with that, okay, great, that's wonderful, that's working for you. However, I want to meet both of you.
Yeah.
I want to hear what the other side has to say about everything that we're going to talk about. We can talk about diving deeper later on with just, say, one of you, if that system works for you well, yet I still want to hear from both sides.
Yeah, I think that that's really, really important. And I'm glad that you have implemented that because at least in Utah, my money's your money.
Yeah.
It's pretty common in most states that if you earn the dollar in the marriage, whether that person ever saw the dollar, it's part theirs.
Okay.
And so it's important,
Yeah,
in
it
the
is.
marriage, outside the marriage, to kind of have to have both parties involved.
Mhm.
And even in my situation with my financial, I am I have a higher risk tolerance.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
but it's my husband's money too. And so, when we go and deal with our financial picture and what we're doing, like, we kind of meet in the middle, because he would be very, very low risk, which means that
Mhm.
we won't retire until we're 70. And I'm like, nope, we're going to do
No,
this.
you mean 80, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I'm like, and he's a physician. And so he's like very methodical. And I'm like, nope, we're in a different direction, which has worked for us. And now,
Yeah.
I'm looking at 50, which is like my goal, 10 years more.
Yeah.
And so,
You can gather that in my marriage situation, guess who's in charge of the finances? Yeah, it's me. However, every significant and major decision that we do, she's in on it. She knows about it. I may be taking care of it, but she knows about it. I think that's
exactly.
vital.
Well, and I think another tip and thing that we should talk about is both parties sign tax returns.
Yeah.
Both of them are swearing to the government that what they're
For
doing,
sure.
blah, blah, blah. So
Mhm.
it's so important that if you're putting your name on that document, that you
Mhm.
understand what's going in the document. And all it is sitting down with your accountant or sitting down with your financial advisor and asking. Hopefully your
Mhm.
spouse would be the one to be able to answer those questions. But if not, just make sure you have
Yeah.
a little
Mhm.
bit of an overview, a simplistic view of what
Mhm.
you're
Mhm.
actually going with.
At least you don't need to know, you don't need to read the entire owner's manual,
Yeah.
okay? But you at least need to know where it is, where you can find it. Because if you're in a boat somewhere, I have no idea how to drive the boat, and say the husband's driving the boat and the husband keels over and dies in a heart attack, you need to know at least where the owner's manual is, so that you can read how to operate the boat. Or if not, have say that business card of the advisor that you have been working with, so that person can tell you what to do from that point forward.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that that's so important, because I was just going to say that. I mean, like, if you have no idea about your financial prowess and your husband just dies or your wife just
Yeah.
dies, I mean, it's a nightmare if you don't know where to go and look, if you don't know where to find the passwords. I mean, it's going to be really, really
Oh,
hard.
that's an entire podcast
Yeah,
for sure
absolutely.
on
And you
And
don't ever want to
especially,
be in that situation, but you have to look at it as divorce as the exact same way. Because I can't
yeah.
tell you how many people come into my office and they're like, okay, we're getting a divorce. I don't know where he has his money. I don't know what we're invested in. I know
Yeah.
that he was doing stock day trading and he lost all his money. You go find out where his money went. And I'm
Mhm.
like, it's going to cost you thousands and thousands and thousands of
Mhm.
dollars to even
Mhm.
try to find out if there was any like frivolous or depreciation
Yeah.
problems going in. At the end of the day, you're probably not going to find any of it. So it's
Mhm.
really, really important for you to, like, if you're even on like the 10-year track of maybe a divorce is possible, or,
Mhm. Yeah.
you need
And
to get up
even
with it.
and even if you're not on that track, accidents happen, emergencies happen, people can drop dead. So if anyone can say one takeaway, and I'm sure there will be many because you are an amazing podcast host and you have an amazing podcast, lots of takeaways in all of your episodes. But at least there's one takeaway for people today is find who would I contact if something happened to my partner who's behind the wheel on this day. If something happened to that person, what would I do? What would be my first step? Do I know what that first step is?
Yeah.
I'd encourage everyone listening to identify what that first step is by the end of the day today. Period.
I love that. I love that tip. And the other thing is there is a lot of free apps out there that, like, I'm a horrible budgeter. Don't ask me to do a budget. I've tried it in my life. I've tried it and
Yeah.
I can't do it. Some people need to do it. It's awesome. But
Mhm.
but one of the things is there's a lot of apps that, like, let's just take Mint, and they'll
Mhm.
give you a free, and of course they really live up to the, budget. Will create a budget for you and then you can follow it. But at the end of the day, they have to put in all your accounts, and so it's just a way to track all of that. So even if you don't want to do a budget, like getting one of those free places where you just know where all of your accounts and your money is
Mhm.
a starting point to at least have, to go and, like, then know, okay, this is our stuff. So
100%. 100%. And that a lot of people's eyes glaze over when they think about numbers and
yeah.
budgeting. And budgeting is one of the most boring topics on the planet Earth. I get that.
Yeah.
Is it a requirement in life to have a budget? No, it's not. Is it advisable? It's a good idea for a lot of people, but it doesn't mean that you have to do it. Although, if you don't know where your numbers are going and are, you are, I think, asking for trouble because the numbers are there whether you care about them or not.
Yeah.
You're still spending, you're still earning so much income, you are spending this other amount in expenses. And I hope that one side is bigger than the other. And I hope it's the right side, and that's the income side. And if it's not, then you're running a personal deficit that is going to, blow up eventually if something isn't changed. That goes
Yeah.
back to the habits that I talked about. But yeah, I think it's vital for anyone, if it's a Mint or another app, or I know people that they just tracked it manually on spreadsheets.
Hmm.
And that's fine. I think that's a little time consuming, but that's fine. But whatever works, at least you have to know your numbers.
Hmm. Absolutely. And like me, like, because I'm not a budgeter doesn't mean I don't know my money. Like,
Yeah.
I look at
Mhm.
my bank accounts every day. I know what's coming off of my credit cards. Now it's a little bit harder now that I run 5 businesses and I've hired people to deal with that. But
Yeah.
but um but there's the difference to that. So
Yeah.
anyways, a great tip is just knowing that it's not necessarily the right way or the wrong way. It's about knowledge, and it's really important in this conversation we're having today.
Yeah, I agree. Mhm.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the tips of financial benefits, and I gave you some but I'm sure you have your own, because people are like, what is the benefit of divorce financially? It's going to cut usually your income in half.
Yeah.
If you're only a one income home, it's really going to stretch that income.
Mhm.
If you're a 2 income home, then it's, you're going to lose half of those money. So So there's a lot of people are just looking at the negative connotation of it.
Yeah, it's easy to do that. And it's right smack in your face. That is a new reality. And I don't blame anyone for paying attention to that. It's important to pay attention to that. But there's a good side that let's bring to people's attention some of the good side. I'd say one of the good sides is maybe your budgeting is easier these days because you used to have him and her. I'll just pick on the guys right now, and now he's out of the picture, and now it's just her. There's one less mouth to feed. The expenditure habits of the ex-husband are no longer part of the new reality, and that can be a benefit. Your income may be cut, but you know what? Expenses can be cut also. Maybe that frees up some disposable income that you didn't find before. I don't know, but that could be a potential good news financially about divorce. And also the control over the money too. It's just you now. You're in charge. You're the only one in charge. So you have more control over your financial destiny.
Yeah.
You don't need to worry about what's he going to think. Second.
Oh, he's going to see my Starbucks on the credit card.
Right. I was going to say, I always want to let people know that doesn't mean, oh, great, now I can spend money on anything that I want to. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that your direction of where your money goes is now completely up to you. And that can be very invigorating, very liberating. And that's a good thing.
Especially if I get the clients that come into my office and they're like, my spouse just spends money like out of control. There's no budget, there's no control. And so I always make the joke like, well, it looks like a divorce is going to make you money because, you get rid of the spender and, they don't get to just spend your money the way that they want to spend. So definitely a benefit. And I absolutely agree. It allows your budget to become more under your control. And so one of the tips that I want people to get from this is when you are going through a divorce, you have to get control of your budget. You have to understand money. You have to understand exactly what you said, what's coming in and what you need to go out, because at the end of the day, you don't want to get into a position where you're going into debt, further and further debt. And so it's the time that if you've never been in control of the money, whether he or she has financially controlled that, or because you just didn't care, well, guess what? This is the opportunity for you to step up, learn some new skills, take some classes. There's so many free education on the internet. Rick will do it sounds like a consult with you to talk to you to how to get smart with money. And you can do that whether you're a 25-year-old getting divorced, a 35-year-old or a 60-year-old, at which gray divorces are becoming even more common.
You bet. Disruption in our life, and divorce is an example of a disruption. It sucks at the moment for sure. However, good things happen as a result of disruption in our life. And in this case, being smarter about your money, I think, is a very good thing for a lot of people. We all can be smarter and wiser about our money. And if we're stuck in our rut and we've been doing the same things over and over and over again, we're not going to change. Sometimes it takes that external event to shake us up. And I think that's a good thing. I think that's a good thing. If the divorce is going to happen, then let's make some good hay out of this moving forward. So the next chapter looks even better than ever before.
Yeah. One of the things about Utah that I've noticed is that people here are pretty financially aware. A lot of times they're educated. A lot of times that they don't do debt, which is probably a benefit of the strong religious, influence that we have in Utah. And a lot of them are very smart within their investments. So when we divorce people, a lot of times we're not divorcing the really sad cases where they're in so much debt, like a bankruptcy is possible, especially at our firm, because we do high asset divorces. But what I've noticed is a lot of times we get these people with tons of money. And you've got that person that is very, very, smart with money and has been investing well. And all of a sudden, this other person is now going to come into a lot of chunk of change, and
Yeah.
they have no idea.
Mhm.
So, what advice would you give to those people? Like, hey, I'm the financial advisor over here. Let me give you a little piece of advice of where to start when you're that person coming into money, but never really have understood what to do with it.
I'd say that the first thing is don't make any decisions. Don't
Okay.
take any action right away. If this is an overwhelming sum of money, I've never had to deal with something like this before. It's similar to a lottery, quite frankly. It may be, one half of what things used to be. However, I've never handled this amount before in my life personally. It was him, not me. You don't want to make any sudden moves. It's just put the pause button on, take a breath, and don't make any sudden moves. That would be my immediate step number one. My next step would be, do you have a friend, or really do you have an advisor that you can count on to start the conversation of what do I need to do now? And I'm asking people to create a new relationship. I got rid of this guy. I don't want another relationship in my life. I'm encouraging people to create a new relationship in your life, but that's the professional one with
Yeah.
someone that you can count on for a very long time, a professional relationship on how to best handle and allocate this money that you're receiving. Put it in smart places for you, smart places that's right for you, so it can grow for you while you can lead your life. You find yourself in a hole now. How do I get out of this hole? I don't know what to do. And if you find the right advisor, they should have that ladder to send you down and help you climb out and make things better and build the assets back to what they once were. And make sure that your money is working for you in the way that's going to fit your life and fit your lifestyle and fit your goals. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Yeah, I love that. And one of the things you said, make smart choices. Remember that when cash is sitting under a mattress or in a safe, it is losing you money. You're actually depreciating an asset that could be, like compound interest. So I always say that I can't believe how many people in Utah have money in a safe, like just gobs of cash. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like at least the gold coins have an appreciation value sitting in a safe, but not cash. So just keep that in mind. I know that there's a lot of people like that don't trust banks, don't trust the
Yeah.
stock market, but
I
I think
understand.
finding a good advisor to help explain that the stock market's not going away, that there are safe and secure investments that you can do to
Yeah.
help your money make you money.
Yeah, and the stock market is not the only place. It is a place, and it's not the only place. And that brings up a point that I would like to offer up is this word diversification.
Yeah.
Having your funds, your money, and spread across many different areas. There's not one place that is going to work all of the time. You want to have your money in the different pockets. I like to describe this for anyone. We have, all of us, 3 wealth buckets. Okay. The first is the protect wealth bucket. The second is the grow wealth bucket. And the third is the explode wealth bucket.
Yeah.
And everyone should have, everyone's buckets will look differently. Going back to the personal that we talked about earlier. I'm not saying that everyone should have a whole lot of money in one or the other. I'm just saying everyone needs to assess what's the allocation that's right for me. Make sure that my funds and my money is spread out in a very diverse manner that covers as many bases as possible with the resources that I have. With that, you will have strong peace of mind that your financial ship is in pretty good working order. And if you've got a good crew, that would be your advisor, say you've got a Jill in your life, and you've got, say, some other mentors or whatever, then you should feel really confident about steering that ship if you've never done it before.
Yeah. Yeah. That goes back. I want to ask this question because I think what so I talk all the time about what you should be doing to look for a good attorney, to find an attorney that is going to represent you well and meet your needs. I want to ask you, what should somebody be looking for when they are looking for a financial investor, or a financial, advisor? Because I mean, I'll just be straight up. There are the financial advisors that are only there to make money, and man, they make a lot of money. And then there are the financial advisors that are really there to create wealth for you. So help our listeners know, like, how do you find the right one?
There are a lot of characteristics that you should look for. How long has the person been in business? I think that if they're certified, like I'm a certified financial planner, I think that's the gold standard in the industry. That doesn't mean that there are not competent financial advisors out there that are not CFPs. There are. However, if you're trying to find things on the surface, that's something to look at. Is the history, how seasoned are they? Yeah, the certifications. Yeah, a big one, Jill, is the chemistry. I'm looking at least, I'd say I'm looking at establishing a relationship. What kind of a relationship do I want? Do I want someone who's guiding me, who's giving me sound advice that I really feel like is in my best interests? Or is this feeling like a transactional relationship where the only bank account that's really highlighted is the other person and not mine, and use your intuition to gauge that. If you can feel a connection, again, a chemistry, because this is someone that you want to have ongoing relationship with, ongoing communication. Is this person talking my language? Is he telling me, or is she telling me something that I can understand, that I could even tell to my own mother without a problem? So that's a big litmus test for me. I look at my own personal spending habits. Who do I like to spend my money? Who do I like to hire? I like to hire people that I like to hang out with, who I like to spend time with, who I like to maybe even do other things with. I don't know, but people who add value in my life. I'm speaking as Rick Salmeron. I'm sending my business that way. And there's plenty of advisors that are out there. Pick the one that's right for you. I hope that those are some good guidelines to have, but it really comes down to, do I resonate with this person?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It's very similar to finding an attorney. You got to find somebody that you meld with, that you trust, that has your back. And that's what you want through a financial advisor. You don't want those financial advisors that don't have your back, that they're consistently selling and to pull their quota up, and they're trying to sell you on all these products because they in the back end make money. You really want to be.
There's a lot out there. And those, I would say, steer away from them for sure.
Yeah. And it's just like an attorney, like, don't be afraid to interview 3 or 4, like, and ask those questions. So that's great. One of the things, another tip that I think is important that people usually don't realize is that when you're in a divorce, in certain circumstances, you can pull and have access to retirement funds. And sometimes penalty free. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, IRA accounts, or say your 401k, these places that the government has given us the blessing to make tax deductible contributions and let money grow tax deferred for a very long time. They give us those upfront and ongoing benefits, and it's wonderful. However, they want to create an incentive that these retirement accounts are time capsule, and I'm putting that in quotes, so to speak. Because if you want to pull money out of those, generally speaking, you not only will pay the taxes on that withdrawal, but you'll also pay a 10% early withdrawal penalty if you're younger than a certain age, and that age is 59 and a half years old. So divorce is one of those instances that if you wanted to withdraw from these tax advantage vehicles, you can avoid that 10% penalty. You still have to pay the taxes on the withdrawal. If you withdraw, that's not going to go away. But at least the 10% early distribution penalty would go away in that instance.
And that can be that can be used in your divorce. If you're looking for a money that you need to free up to
Yeah.
pay off debt,
Mhm.
or if you
Mhm.
need a down payment for a house,
Mhm.
that's a really good benefit that you can, utilize to help you get, one
Yeah.
foot forward.
Mhm.
I love
Exactly.
that.
Mhm.
One of the things is, as a single parent, there's opportunities in a lot of different situations that you can get, benefits from, whether it's government assistance for single moms to go back to school, or college financial aid for your kids. There is a myriad of programs, to really help single parents in benefiting either themselves or their kids. So
Mhm.
I see that as a benefit as well.
Yeah, for sure. Like you can apply for with the FAFSA, applying for financial aid. That FAFSA, who provides the financial aid, they are looking at the highest income of, say, both spouses in a marriage situation. Well, if you're not married anymore and you find yourself in a much lower income than once was, that's going to up your chances of getting some FAFSA financial aid. So that can be seen also as a benefit for those who are candidates for financial aid for FAFSA. That can be a good thing. Not always, it's not an automatic that I'm divorced, therefore I've got really good chances of getting financial aid. Not necessarily, because the alimony, if you're getting paid alimony, that counts. So
Right.
it might not make any difference, but it just depends on the person's situation. You could find yourself in far better shape to get financial aid than before as a result of that. So that can be seen as a benefit also. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Um, Another benefit. So, okay. So I actually have a question, because I think that this is probably something that my listeners think about all the time, is that, okay, my husband has been working at his job for X amount of years, and he has a 401k that I never really saw because it just came out of his paycheck.
Mhm.
And, he works for, whatever company.
Mhm.
Well, at the divorce, they find out, it's $350,000 or whatnot, and she's going to get half. And she's
Mhm.
like, okay. So a lot of them are like, well, how do I get half? Well, I'll just explain the legal part, and then I'm going to get to my
Mhm.
question, Rick, is that,
Yeah.
we have to do what's called the qualified domestic relations order. It's going to be an order of the court where that plan administrator has to actually split that money,
Mhm.
and it goes into an account that is under your name.
Mhm.
What I wanted to ask you is to walk through the fact, because a lot of people don't understand. Okay, so now I have that money in my hand, then what? Um, I, a lot of people think, well, does his plan administrator still administrate the money and still invest it
Mhm.
for me? And
Uh, mhm. How does
so,
that work? You mean?
yeah, and I wanted
Yeah.
you to kind of walk through that process of what they can do with that money now, and the
Yeah. Well,
possibilities with it.
yeah. Generally speaking, in that case, I'm going to paint the example. He's got the 401k. Now we're divorced. I'm going to get half of that $175,000, like you said. So me as the ex-spouse, say the wife, I will open up a brand new IRA, individual retirement account, an IRA rollover. It's called. It's going to be empty, but it's going to have my name on it. I'm going to own it.
And that can
And
be with anybody. You can open that
anybody.
through any group.
It
Okay.
can be anybody. It won't be with the plan administrator at the 401k. That he's still working there. He's still an active participant. The plan administrator they've done this a billion times. Quadro's there. They will split the assets in half, and they will say, okay, ma'am, where do you want us to send this money? Tell us where your IRA is located. And if you're working with an advisor, they'll know the answers to all those questions. But the IRA is open for say the ex-wife. The plan administrator literally sends a check for half of the balance, and it goes from point A to point B. It is not a taxable event. It's not considered a distribution.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a transfer. It not only avoids that early distribution penalty, it avoids all the taxes because it's not considered to be leaving and receiving, in a person's hands. It's only going to another tax deferred place. So that's how it works. And then from that point, hopefully in advance of all of that, with a discussion with an advisor who's looking after your best interests, let's get an idea of how risky or not do you want this account to be? Do we want this to be like a Jill Coyle style IRA, or do we want it to be a Jill, say, husband IRA, just giving, what's your risk tolerance? What's your emotional state of mind? I've never done the stock market before. I want to get my toes wet first before I get my feet wet. Or no, I'm good. I'm good. Or it could be, well, Rick, you tell me what to do. Well, the advisor can be a very good guider of how to best allocate that money. How young or how old is the ex-wife? How much time do we have? Is it short? Is it long? So, because we've got that, age 59 and a half business to deal with. We don't want any negative tax ramifications between today and whenever that might be. So that's another factor. But setting the account and figuring out the allocation moving forward are the steps of that.
I love that, because I wanted to share my personal experience. So I finished law school and went to work, and then my husband came to me and said, I want to go to medical school. So I worked, and so we weren't like high on the investment strategy because we just didn't have the money. I was supporting the family and he was, going to school. And luckily we were able to do it where he only had to borrow money for his tuition and nothing else. But my story is when I started my first IRA, I was like, okay, I'm just going to do a simple IRA. My accountant was like, just do that. And I was like, okay, I'm going to invest, whatever the max was, the 5,000. This was years ago or whatever.
Yeah.
Now I think it's like 6,500 or whatever. And so I put the money in the account and I just kind of forgot about it. Right. And it was like a simple Fidelity account or anything, I didn't know how to do it. And again, I didn't have the money I was just not in a position for a financial advisor. And I remember like going to the account, like 7 months later, and I had the exact same amount of money in it. And I was like,
yeah.
What?
I know what happened, but continue.
You know exactly where I'm going with this. I had no idea that I had to take my money and then I had to set my investment portfolio. I had to go and buy stock, or I had to invest in a market bond. I had no idea. And so where my story can, I hope, lend a hand to other people is rolling the money over to your IRA will not put it back into an investment strategy. It will literally be in a savings account where you will be making no money. And so that's where my tip, I guess, is you have to understand, either you're going to have to take the lead in understanding investments. And I've been really proud of my IRA portfolio because I really learned really quickly, and I've been investing that. And now I've got my 401ks and all my other big investments with my financial advisor. But that's something I want people to hear, is that just rolling the money over, you don't have somebody controlling your money now. That plan administrator is not going to do anything for it. It's going to sit there until you act. So that's why Rick needs to come into the play, because he's going to tell you, okay, let's set up your investment portfolio. So
you got it.
Anyways, I absolutely have loved this conversation. I think that it's so important for people to understand that, going through divorce is going to have financial ramifications, and they're not all bad things. They can be really some positive things. One of the other things I was going to talk about is it actually can change first of all, your investment tolerance, like you said. So like a lot of people, these gray divorces have been, I think, are really impactful, where people are getting divorced between 50 and 65. That's the years where you're supposed to create the most wealth, and now you're cutting it off. But again, I think that if you were to get a really smart, investment like Rick, who could lead you through just changing your tolerance a little bit, you can then make up some of that money very quickly to make it so it doesn't seem like you're just gonna have to work for the rest of your life. I don't think that's necessarily.
There's no guarantees to that at all. However, I do feel like that adds an ingredient to a recipe that can help accelerate the process. I'm 30 years in the business. Okay. I've seen a lot. I know a lot. Like Jill, I don't know how long you've been an attorney, but I'm sure you're a wealth of knowledge. What you do is such a complete different world. We need Jills in our life for sure. And I think likewise, also, when it comes to financial guidance, a person can think, gosh, do I want to spend the next 30 years of my life figuring out how all this works? Or can I just bring someone else in to help me get me up to speed like right away? That helps accelerate the process.
Absolutely. And as much as it's been fun for my, small IRA to like go and research index funds and mutual funds and, it's, I don't have the time to do it now. I mean,
Yeah.
and so, really being able, and, we have an aggressive retirement plan. I really do. I want to be to the point where I can be, not necessarily working, but I can be helping others achieve their goals and dreams. And I really, and so, for me being almost 40 and, seeing that goal and then having somebody like Rick behind me saying, we can make this happen and this is how we're going to do it, is really important. The other thing about financial advising, which I think is really, really important as well, is that there's a little bit of accountability with it, because I'm meeting with my financial advisor to say, Jill, like, let's be talking about things that you actually need to be doing to contribute to growing your wealth. Whereas before it was so easy for me to take that savings and say, oh, I want to go on that new vacation, because, and not thinking of actual ways of the end game, which is, I don't want to work for the rest of my life.
That's true. That's true. As an advisor, I'll be frank. There are times when I feel like I'm on the border of inserting my own values versus the client getting to do whatever he or she wants with their money, right?
Yeah.
And at the end, it is their money, and I want them to do with it as they please. Yet, I think you made a very good point that having an advisor on your side, is it okay? Are you sure you want to use these funds for XYZ? Just want to remember what we talked about last time, and is that still the case, or have some priorities changed? So it does allow a person to pause and kind of reassess, am I going back to my old ways of doing things, or is Rick right? I really need to be maybe cutting that activity out. That's a good thing. I think also working with an advisor helps people not freak out, especially when it comes to, say, the stock market, especially this year.
Yeah.
This year has come out with a bang, and the bang has been downhill, and that can really freak people out. And that just adds to the stress. That adds to the stress to, say, the divorce. And who wants that? I think an advisor who's been around the block a few times can help people provide security, calm, and certainty in any volatile moment when it comes to one's money.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up, though.
Yeah, and we know that. I mean, when you start getting into financial literacy and understanding it, like I love that I can invest right now. I'm like, let's go, because I know that the stock market is exactly doing what it's done in generations, and people like you leading the way and teaching and giving that, security is so important. So
go ahead. I was going to add one last point. We feel fear. When we feel fear, that's a trigger that we're going into a space of unknown.
Yeah.
Where we're looking in the future and we're going to a space of unknown. And when you have, in whatever aspect of life, if you got someone who's been there before to help you bring known into the unknown space, that makes you feel better.
Yes, absolutely, Rick. That was the point that I wanted to end on. I think that's so very, very important. I have absolutely loved our episode. I really want people to be able to find you, to get more information or to even reach out if they'd like to. So, Rick, how can my listeners find you?
You can find me on the web, which is salmeronfinancial.com. That's my last name and the word financial all put together. I'm on Instagram at Rick Salmeron, and you can also find me on Facebook as well. But happy to reach out and give whatever guidance that I can, because I love doing this.
I absolutely. Thank you so much. It was so good to meet you. That was another episode of No One Dies from Divorce. Remember, your financial awareness is so important in divorce, and we're here every week to give you more tips and tricks of not only to survive your divorce, but thrive through it. Until next time. Thanks, Rick. Thank you for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed, please subscribe, follow, and share. I'd love to hear your questions and feedback. You can contact me at community@jillcoyle.com. See you next time. I am an attorney, but I am not your attorney. Any advice given on the podcast is general and shall not be construed as legal advice.